Hi, folks.
Good morning.
I'm Kim,
I'm Andy.
and we're reading to you from the Urantia book,
We are.
and we're on paper 187, the crucifixion. So we're heading toward the culmination of this drama. So we're on part 1, on the way to Golgotha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just asking Andy, what is Calvary then, if they're on their way to Golgotha? And he said it's the same thing.
I believe it's the same thing.
Is it the same thing? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Before leaving the courtyard of the praetorium, the soldiers placed a crossbeam on Jesus' shoulders. It was the custom to compel the condemned man to carry the crossbeam to the site of the crucifixion. Such a condemned man did not carry the whole cross, only the shorter timber. The longer and upright pieces of lumber for the 3 crosses had already been transported to Golgotha, and by the time of the arrival of the soldiers and their prisoners, had been firmly implanted in the ground.
Right, insult to injury, right? So make him carry his own.
But he only carried the crossbeam, not the whole cross, like you see in some pictures.
Well, sure, like that makes it okay. No, not, I don't know. Anyway, okay. According to custom, the captain led the procession, carrying small white boards on which had been written with charcoal the names of the criminals and the nature of the crimes for which they had been condemned. For the 2 thieves, the centurion had notices which gave their names, underneath which was written the one word, brigand. It was the custom after the victim had been nailed to the crossbeam and hoisted to his place on the upright timber to nail this notice to the top of the cross just above the head of the criminal, that all witnesses might know for what crime the condemned man was being crucified. The legend which the centurion carried to put on the cross of Jesus had been written by Pilate himself in Latin, Greek, and Aramaic, and it read, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews.
Wow. Some of the Jewish authorities who were not present when Pilate wrote the legend made various protests against calling Jesus the King of the Jews. But Pilate reminded them that such was the accusation was part of the charge which had led to his condemnation. When the Jews saw they could not prevail upon Pilate to change his mind, they pleaded that at least it be modified to read, he said, I am the King of the Jews. But Pilate was adamant he would not alter the writing. To all further application, he only replied, what I have written, I have written.
Wow. So that kind of shows, I don't know, that Pilate kind of maybe believes him a little bit, or is he just trying to, like, you already had your way, you're, yep.
You're trying to make too subtle a point. This is a crucifixion here.
Well, the Jews were all about that, just like the little. The more I read about them, it's like, oh, you guys, you're pretty anal here, but okay. Okay. And that's the last word. I guess that's what I want to say. The last word is that he is King of the Jews. That's kind of the last word on the matter. Anyway, okay. Ordinarily, it was the custom to journey to Golgotha by the longest road in order that a large number of persons might view the condemned criminal. But on this day, they went by the most direct route to the Damascus Gate, which led out of the city to the north. And following this road, they soon arrived at Golgotha, the official crucifixion site of Jerusalem. Beyond Golgotha were the villas of the wealthy, and on the other side of the road were the tombs of many well-to-do Jews.
Wow. Crucifixion was not a Jewish mode of punishment. Both the Greeks and the Romans learned this method of execution from the Phoenicians. Even Herod, with all his cruelty, did not resort to crucifixion. The Romans never crucified a Roman citizen. Only slaves and subject people were subjected to this dishonorable mode of death. During the siege of Jerusalem, just 40 years after the crucifixion of Jesus, all of Golgotha was covered for thousands upon thousands of crosses, upon which from day to day there perished the flower of the Jewish race, a terrible harvest, indeed, of the seed sowing of this day.
Wow.
Wow.
So 40 years from this time is when they finally got tired of these.
Got tired of these Jews and
We're going to go
broke the kingdom and scattered them, those
and
that weren't
crucified.
crucified.
As the death procession passed along the narrow streets of Jerusalem, many of the tender-hearted Jewish women who had heard Jesus' words of good cheer and compassion, and who knew of his life of loving ministry, could not refrain from weeping when they saw him being led forth to such an ignoble death. As he passed by, many of these women bewailed and lamented, and when some of them even dared to follow along by his side, the master turned his head toward them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but rather weep for yourselves and for your children. My work is about done. Soon I go to my Father. But the times of terrible trouble for Jerusalem are just beginning. Behold, the days are coming in which you shall say, Blessed are the barren and those whose breasts have never suckled their young." Wow. In those days will you pray the rocks of the hills to fall on you in order that you may be delivered from the terrors of your troubles.
Wow.
Oh.
These women of Jerusalem were indeed courageous to manifest sympathy for Jesus, for it was strictly against the law to show friendly feelings for one who was being led forth to crucifixion. It was permitted the rabbi to jeer,
The rabble
to jeer, mock, and ridicule the condemned, but it was not allowed that any sympathy should be expressed. Though Jesus appreciated the manifestation of sympathy in this dark hour, when his friends were in hiding, he did not want these kind-hearted women to incur the displeasure of the authorities by daring to show compassion on his behalf. Even at such a time as this, Jesus thought little about himself, only of the terrible days of tragedy ahead for Jerusalem and the whole Jewish nation. Wow.
Yeah. As the master trudged along on the way to the crucifixion, he was very weary. He was nearly exhausted. He had had neither food nor water since the Last Supper at the home of Elijah Mark. Neither had been permitted to enjoy one moment of sleep. Neither had he been permitted to enjoy one moment of sleep because he's up all night, no water. You could give him a cup of water, geez. In addition, there had been one hearing right after another up to the hour of his condemnation, not to mention the abuse of scourgings with their accompanying physical suffering and loss of blood. Superimposed upon all this was his extreme mental anguish, his acute spiritual tension, and a terrible feeling of human loneliness.
Shortly after passing through the gate on the way out of the city, as Jesus staggered on bearing the crossbeam, his physical strength momentarily gave way, and he fell beneath the weight of his heavy burden.
Wow.
The soldiers shouted at him and kicked him, but he could not arise. When the captain saw this, knowing what Jesus had already endured, he commanded the soldiers to desist. Then he ordered a passerby, one Simon from Cyrene, to take the crossbeam from Jesus' shoulders and compelled him to carry it the rest of the way to Golgotha.
Okay, so he got a little bit of help there, carrying his beam. This man, Simon, had come all the way from Cyrene in northern Africa to attend the Passover. He was stopping with other Cyrenians just outside the city walls and was on his way to the temple services in the city when the Roman captain commanded him to carry Jesus' crossbeam. Simon lingered, although the hours of the Master's death on the cross, he lingered all through the hours of the Master's death on the cross, talking with many of his friends and with his enemies. After the resurrection and before leaving Jerusalem, he became a valiant believer in the gospel of the kingdom. And when he returned home, he led his family into the heavenly kingdom. His two sons, Alexander and Rufus, became very effective teachers of the new gospel in Africa. Wow. But Simon never knew that Jesus, whose burden he bore, and the Jewish tutor who once befriended his injured son were the same person.
It was shortly after 9 o'clock when this procession of death arrived at Golgotha. The Roman soldiers set themselves about the task of nailing the two brigands and the Son of Man to their respective crosses. Wow.
Okay. Yeah, this is interesting about this Simon. I guess Jesus knew his family before, but they didn't know him. It says he never knew that Jesus, whose burden he bore, and he was a Jewish tutor that helped his injured son. So I guess Jesus had helped Simon's son at some point before, so there was a connection there. Yeah, I like those kind of serendipity kind of connections because it's like, yeah, it's a network. It's all things happen and they come again. But anyway, here, okay, we know how it ends.
And we're there.
And we're there, so we'll stop there for today. And tomorrow we'll read part 2. Okay?
My day is off to a good start. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. I hope you have a good day too.